Can a single pilot change forever how a historical team works like Ferrari and incidentally alter the technical future of the entire Formula One? Because what Lewis Hamilton has just demanded is not only unexpected. He is revolutionary. Lewis Hamilton did not reach Ferrari as any signing. It was not a move by marketing, nostalgia, or ego. It was a calculated, almost political act of a pilot who knows that his years are counted, but that his influence is more alive than ever. From the first moment, what most surprised Maranello's engineers was not their piloting, or their charisma, or their history. It was his approach, methodical, almost obsessive, and deeply critical. An approach that does not seek to adapt to the pilot to the car, but redesign the entire structure to create a car worthy of the pilot. That is the essence of what represents the so-called 678 project, the internal name of Ferrari 2026. For many, only one more number in design's chronology. For Hamilton, it is his last great work. And what he is asking for that car exceeds any recent precedent in the history of the Italian team. We talk about a transformation that begins in the internal culture of the team and reaches the specific design of each mechanical component. There is no area that is left without examining. There is no habit that is left without questioning. During the 2025 season, Hamilton has not limited himself to talking with his engineers or giving feedback in the paddock. He has personally written and sent at least 3 technical documents that could be qualified more as an engineering thesis than as simple reports of a pilot. In them, dissect the performance of the SF25 with surgical precision, pointing out the concept errors, the integration failures between systems, and the operational weaknesses that, according to him, keep Ferrari stagnant in a cycle of frustration and mediocrity. But the boldest of this initiative is not alone in the technical. It is in the human. Hamilton proposes a total reconfiguration of how Ferrari manages communication between his departments. It states that the flow of information within the factory is slow, disconnected, and often ineffective. And that, in the current Formula One, is a competitive death sentence. In his words, Ferrari must abandon his hierarchical and fragmented model and adopt a more integrated, more horizontal approach, where collaboration between those responsible for aerodynamics, electronics, simulation, and mechanical is constant and proactive, not reactive. The revolution that Hamilton proposes is not a whim or an exaggeration. It is a reaction to the reality of a Ferrari that, for more improvements that implements, remains a giant that stumbles with its own weight. He has lived it in his own flesh. From his first test in Firen, he noticed that the car did not respond as he should. It wasn't just a slow car, it was a Desinkahan car with its own goals. And that is what led him to act with the urgency and intensity that this stage has marked. Each word written by Hamilton in those documents has a purpose. He doesn't want a faster Ferrari. He wants a new Ferrari. One that does not depend on an occasional talent spark on the track, but also build excellence from inside, day after day, race after race. One who does not satisfy with fighting for isolated podiums, but aspires as McLaren did in 2024 to transform each error into a lesson, and each lesson into an advantage. If Ferrari listens, Project 678 could not only be the most ambitious car in the recent history of the Scuderia, it could be the final inheritance of one of the most influential pilots of sport. And if they don't, Hamilton will have made it clear that he tried everything to wake up the sleeping giant. One of the pillars of Hamilton's demands has to do with something that seems technical, almost lower, but in practice it has been the origin of multiple frustrations: brakes. And behind the mistakes that many interpreted as simple failures of the pilot, there was a system that, in his own words, is a lottery. From the first day in Firen, Hamilton noticed that the brakes of the Ferrari SF25 were not only different from those of Mercedes, but unpredictable. What should be a total control tool became a source of constant uncertainty. In Mercedes, Hamilton had become accustomed to carbon industry systems, a configuration that offered a progressive and reliable response. Ferrari, on the contrary, works with Brembo brakes, with a more aggressive touch and a more difficult modulation to anticipate. This, added to a motor brake that intervenes much more steep, has generated erratic behavior in the braking phase. The result? Unexpected blockades, control losses in critical areas such as the stop bus in Spa, and a constant need to manage brakes from the first laps. In a sport where the pilot needs to blindly trust in every millimeter of the pedal, this is simply unacceptable. But the problem does not end in hardware. The philosophy of how Ferrari manages braking as a comprehensive system is another of criticism. Hamilton has made it clear that the team must rethink not only the component provider, but the way the complete system is integrated into the chassis. It proposes a structural redesign of the braking cast, a greater collaboration between the brake department and that of aerodynamics to improve the stability of the car at the curve entrance, and an adjustment to the energy recovery software that allows a more fluid transition between mechanical braking and regenerative. Beyond the brakes, Hamilton has put the magnifying glass on the Ferrari simulator. It is not the first time that he does. In his time in Mercedes, he had already promoted deep improvements in simulation environments, aware that the real difference is built between races, not only in them. In Maranello, however, a tool that considers outdated. For him, the simulator does not loyalty the behavior of the car in real conditions, which causes a domino effect. The pilots prepare with a configuration that in theory should work, but that in practice is crumbled. And that implies that all weekend work begins from an erroneous base. In his technical documents, Hamilton has been brutally honest. It proposes a radical reform of the simulation system, which includes not only a hardware and software update, but a redesign of the mathematical model of the car, a redefinition of the entrance parameters, and the hiring of specialists that come from other industries such as aerospace and automotive to bring new ideas to the table. According to his vision, Ferrari cannot afford to continue improvising. You need to train in a digital environment that is as precise and demanding as the track itself. Hamilton understands that he is asking a lot, and that what he proposes are not simple adjustments. They are surgical interventions in the DNA of a team that, for years, has lived from its legend without looking straight ahead. But he also knows that if Ferrari wants to stop chasing and start leading, the time to break with the past is now. What Lewis Hamilton is doing with Ferrari transcends the logic of a pilot who changes his team. He is trying to redesign from within one of the oldest, traditional, and symbolic teams in the history of motoring. He does not seek to adapt to Ferrari. Seek that Ferrari adapts to a new era. And if it achieves it, the domino effect will not only be internal, it will be global. It could trigger a change in the balance of power between pilots, engineers, and equipment that modern Formula One has not seen in decades. Until now, even the most laureate champions have been key figures, but not architects of a technical project. What Hamilton proposes breaks with that tradition. It is raising the pilot's role at an executive level. It is not just about giving feedback on the car, but about dictating how the development flow is structured, how engineering equipment is organized, how the car is thought from the concept to execution. Its influence is no longer limited to what happens on Sundays. Now it intervenes in the complete cycle, from the design of the wind tunnel to the analysis after each grand prize. From a historical perspective, Hamilton also has another dimension. Very few champions have tried to leave a mark beyond their titles. Prost was a pilot and technical director. Lauda influenced Mercedes' course before his death. But what Hamilton proposes is to redraw the work model of a team like Ferrari from the base, while he is still on the track competing. That has never been seen. If the 678 project becomes a reality based on the ideas he has planted, then his legacy will no longer be that of a champion. It will be that of a transformer. This movement also reveals something deep about the current state of Formula One. The teams, however powerful, can no longer be affected as operating as closed engineering islands. The speed of change, the complexity of the regulations, and the media pressure forced to open the game. And the pilots, with their direct experience, with their sensitivity, with their empirical understanding of the car, become strategic assets that cannot be relegated to the role of executors. Hamilton understands. And he is forcing Ferrari to understand it too. Now, this is not exempt from risk. Because if Ferrari does not listen, if Project 678 fails, if the SF26 does not reflect Hamilton's ideas or does not translate into tangible results, the narrative could become against it. He would no longer be the architect of a rebirth. It would be the face of a failed illusion. And that knows that too. That is why every step it takes is loaded with precision. There is no improvisation. Everything is designed to leave their mark. In the end, the question that is floating is this: are we witnessing the last major chapter of a legend or the first act of a new era in Formula One? Because if what Hamilton is proposing materializes, then not only Ferrari will change, the full sport will change. It will change the way we understand leadership in motor racing. And then, instead of asking ourselves how many victories or championships Lewis Hamilton has, we will talk about how the pilot who transformed the F1 from the inside was. We are facing a moment that could mark a before and after in the modern history of Formula One. Lewis Hamilton is not simply trying to win more races or add another world title. It is leading a transformation experiment from Ferrari's heart, the most symbolic team in sport. He is taking a huge risk not only with his image but with his legacy. Because if it fails, its story with Ferrari will be remembered as an impossible dream. But if it succeeds, We will be facing a complete redefinition of the role of a pilot in the elite of motoring, and this is where you, as an amateur, as a critical observer, as passionate about this sport, you have to take position. Do you think Ferrari will really listen to Hamilton? Or are we facing another case where internal policy and fear of change will end up drowning the potential of a champion? Should more pilots have this voice within their teams? Are we witnessing the beginning of a new era where the pilots are co-creators of technical performance? Leave me your opinion in the comments, subscribe, and thanks for getting to the end.